West Virginia mountain melody. There's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free, your West Virginia mountain melodies.
Welcome to an on-the-road edition of Around and About the Clarksburg History Museum. And today I'm in southern Harrison County in the community of Johnstown. And my guests today are John Chapman and Bill Suan, curators of the Johnstown History Museum. And thank you guys for joining us today. John, you're one of the local historians for Johnstown, and you're also involved with the volunteer fire department and 4-H club here in Johnstown. So for the listeners that don't know, how do they get here to Johnstown from Clarksburg?
Well, you could take the interstate south, the Lost Creek exit, and it's 6 miles from Lost Creek, or you can come Route 20 south and get off before you get to Barber County, and it's 3 miles from Route 20.
Okay. It has a long history here, so I kind of want to delve into that a little bit. I had a copy of an 1886 map of Elk District, and it lists the name as Johntown. So how did it get its name, and when did that kind of change?
Well, about the Civil War time, before the Civil War, it was called McPherson's Crossing, because McPherson's owned all the land from up in Upshur County all the way down to almost Mines Mills. And after the Civil War, there were so many gentlemen here that was named John, including both of our relatives, that they named it Johntown, and later the state changed it to Johnstown.
Okay. Some of the early people that settled here, both of you chime in there. Tell me some of the early names that settled here first.
The earliest people that was here?
Yeah.
Well, you would have had the McPhersons, and you had Lewis's, Wilson Lewis. You had Post. Actually, John Post was a little further over on Jesse's Run, and his son Enoch moved. Johnstown and did a lot for the church, and
that's your relatives.
And the grist mill, yeah.
That's your relatives.
And the Thrashes had quite a bit of land here.
And it's amazing that those families are still here in this area all that time later.
Yeah, descendants of the McPhersons are still here. There's not an actual McPherson name still here. And it's the same way with who's the other name that we were talking about, John, that was here? We don't have any Queens left.
No Queens. Well, Donnie's back.
Well, yeah, Donald Queen moved
Queen's
back.
Here.
Oh, well, that's
right.
good.
Back from Florida.
Yeah, he did.
That's been a name synonymous with Johnstown for many
Queen
years.
Reunion was a big deal at one time.
What did he do for a living?
Farmer.
Do you know? Farmer.
Original
Okay.
one, yeah. They had the land grant from the governor of Virginia, because back when they got it, it was Virginia. Community was.
Tell about the Civil War story you were telling
The
me,
Civil
John.
War story, back in the early 80s, we did a reenactment for our community fair. It was called the Affair at Johnstown. And I did the research on that. And at the time, the Confederates were in Johnstown foraging, taking food and horses from people. And the Union found out about it. They were based in Clarksburg, and they sent guys out. And it was basically a run and gun horseback battle. But they captured a Confederate Major Armsy. And that was the significance of the battle here. And Nathan Goff, that everything in Clarksburg's named after, he was in prison in Virginia. And his parents got an audience with Lincoln and proposed trading this Major Armsy that was captured in Johnstown to get Nathan Goff back. And they did that.
That is interesting. You want a connection with Clarksburg?
Yeah, that was the connection there, because everything in Clarksburg is named after Nathan Goff.
Was during the Civil War, did you have a lot of, like, your neighbor was a Southern sympathizer, and maybe you were for the North? Did they have a lot of division here in Johnstown?
I don't think they had a lot of division. I remember my granddad said some deserter, he didn't tell me whether it was Confederate or, because he was born in 1879, his father had told him they hid him out in their old log barn down there for a while.
Really?
For a few days. He didn't know where they defected from, but they were trying to get out of the war, and a lot of people, I guess, did that.
I was looking at that old map of Elk District from 1886, and I was sort of taken aback. And now that I've seen these pictures here at your museum and the ones that Bill Suan brought, surprised how many people were here and what all kind of businesses there were.
Yeah, it was a pretty much self-sustaining community back at turn of the century, 1900, because they had the grist mill, they had a post office, they had a hat shop, broom factory, a barber shop, blacksmith shops, general stores. What else?
Two blacksmith shops.
I love this one. James M. Queen was the undertaker and dealer in all kinds of furniture, keeping constantly on hand a full line of burial cases, and he was also a merchant.
Yeah, that was a big thing. They had their own. It wasn't exactly a funeral home because they'd have the funerals in the homes or in the church, but they had the shop where they embalmed the bodies and all that. And Roy Davis was one of the, in later years, was one of the funeral directors.
Yeah.
And he was related to, how did he help with Davis or Davis and Weaver?
I'm not sure they had a connection, Davis and Weaver. But his dad, Billy Davis, he was a carpenter, and he was an undertaker.
Bill,
And
tell us.
I showed you the picture of the hearse up there at the farm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell the story about the records that you found from the undertaker?
Yeah, there's at the undertaker shop they had the funeral records, and
They were in like
records,
these ledger books.
Yeah, ledger books, and then those books have been. Some of them are still floating around, and we got probably 7 or 8 of them that came out of the Davis house that was donated to the museum by the people that bought the house.
That's great you saved those, because I'll never forget my first time to the museum here. I was flipping through those, and I found my great-grandfather's name in there, and it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We saved a couple caskets. They're up there in the back room
Oh, really?
of our museum. We've got an old felt covered wooden casket, and then we have the basket that they went and recovered the bodies with, and we saved those. And I wish we'd have saved them. There were huge jugs of embalming fluid, glass jugs, and we buried all those with the backhoe when they tore the building down. And I remember I was just a little kid when they sold the hearse out of the barn up there. I remember pulling it out, loading it on a trailer, and taking it away. It would have been so great to have that.
Oh, that would have been amazing. But they would have serviced not only here in Johnstown area, maybe like down around Romines Mills and.
Yeah, probably anybody that called them, they would have went there and done that.
That's amazing. I guess the grist mill I'm sort of interested in because we have a farming room that just opened up at our Clarksburg History Museum. So if I can talk a little bit about the grist mill here. We have a book at the museum that's the history of the grist mills of Harrison County, and it came out in 1940, I believe. And I loved how it talked about the mill here in they call it Johntown in the book. And it said it was one of the last grist mills erected in Harrison County, and it was still standing when that book came out in 1940, and it was still grinding corn at that time. And the kind of connection with Clarksburg that it had on that was Ira Hart. Everyone knows Hart's Foundry there in Clarksburg. He was a big miller, had grist mills, sold machinery for mills. He was the one that they engaged in building the first mill here. And that was 1875. And some of the names that were invested in this venture were Bill Suan's great-great-great-grandfather, Enoch Post, E.D. Lewis, John Thrash, C.P. Queen, Daniel Lewis. That was just some of the names on there. So tell me a little bit what you may know about that mill.
I didn't know a lot about it. My grandfather Chapman purchased it in 1948 and made a house out of it, took the grist mill stuff away, and they lived there. They moved about a mile moved from the farm to the city, which was Johnstown, and took up residence there around 1950 when he got it redone. He took it from a 3-story down to a 1.5 stories, and they lived in that. And I spent a lot of time with them. So
that must have been, what years do you think that was, John?
They did it about 1950.
Okay. So probably in the 40s that was still active, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say it was.
Because it said, like, at the time this book came out, it was Johnstown's mill was only one of 2 of the mills where you could still get grist of corn ground in the whole state, I guess, at that time. That was pretty amazing. So I want to talk a little bit, Bill, about Enoch. Tell me a little bit about the Post family in the area.
Enoch Post, he brought the first Percheron horses into the area. He had a partner, Ira Carper Post, that had the Templemore farm out on Route 20. And
was that his brother?
They were cousins.
Cousins, okay.
Yeah. And so they brought those into the area, and he was a prominent person. He was one of the beginning people in the Johnstown church. And I found out today the mill. And so he was quite a prominent farmer in his day. They bought cattle, and they put cattle out in the country, and then they'd pay weight gain on it, and they would gather the cattle in.
I suppose he took the cattle to Lost Creek maybe to
the railroad, yeah.
Did they herd them down the road to there?
They drove cattle drives, yeah. My uncle said when he was in school, which would have been back in the 30s, that he told me that the teacher let him out to see a cattle drive one day, and they were clear out of sight and went down by the school. There were so many cattle that you couldn't see beginning and end. So many.
Wouldn't that be something to see?
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of them even herding turkeys. I can't imagine how you herd turkeys.
Yeah. Back then, I'm not sure what year, my grandmother's brother, Oscar Lance, he was on a cattle drive from Beverly. Now, can you imagine driving from Beverly to Lost Creek, driving cattle? He was 12 years old. He was thrown from his horse, and it ruptured his kneecap. And they didn't take him to the hospital. They just wrapped it up, put him back on the horse, and kept going. And he had a limp the rest of his life, as I remember him as an older man, and he limped really bad.
They weren't going to stop the cattle drive for him, huh?
He had one leg, he couldn't bend it because it just shattered everything in it.
Wow. It's amazing how people did things back then, but they had to do with what they had. Could you imagine how bad the roads were?
Oh, I'm sure. I can't imagine riding a horse that far anyway.
No,
from Beverly, that's a long haul.
I'm amazed, like in the Civil War, John, how many miles those men would march with all that pack on them and everything, like 20 miles a day.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
So Lost Creek was the largest cattle shipping point east of the Mississippi River, and my family took a lot of cattle in there. That's what they did, was buy cattle and put them out to the farmers, and then they would gather them back up and drive them to the railroad.
You know, when you think about it, everyone either farmed or was associated with farming in some way. And I had something the other day, I was talking to someone about how many acres of wheat used to be grown in Harrison County. Yeah. And I don't know of one wheat field today that anywhere in Harrison County. It's amazing.
Granddad Chapman and who lived up in the hall of the Post, the house up there below Jeff Albright's?
Gordon.
Gordon?
Lehman.
Must have been Gordon or Lehman one, but he been Granddad's age, Lehman?
Lehman would have been your granddad's
They bought a threshing machine together, horse-drawn, and they went all over Harrison County and threshed wheat for people.
That was Lehman.
I remember him talking about that.
That would have been something to have seen.
Oh, yeah.
Last one I remember of wheat, there used to be out on the Lost Creek Road, someone used to grow wheat. That's been years ago, though. But
Enoch paid over $3,000 for the one horse that he had shipped over here from France.
Yeah.
And that was in, I think, the 1870s.
Yeah, what would that be equivalent? Like probably $30-some thousand today? Yeah. What year? I have this great article about Enoch Post that Bill provided to the museum. I don't know what year that came from, but yeah, they were talking about how he paid like $1,800 for one, and $3,500 for another, and that's a lot of money back then. Yeah. Well, I want to talk you guys about the museum here. I just took a tour of it. I was really impressed with it. It's beautiful. Lots to see. Are you open at certain times where people can come to see the museum?
Mostly open to the fair. When my wife was teaching school, she would bring kids out here, and we'll open it up. With a notice, someone wants to come out and look at it, just let us know.
How does someone contact you if they want to come?
You can contact my house number.
Do you want to give that out?
304-622-6223, and and set up an appointment. And
You remember my numbers, 304-624-9843.
Okay.
And set up an appointment.
I don't want to give away what all you have in the museum, but some of the highlights of what you have.
We have a lot
and
of-
talk about the building too, John.
The old building was built in the 1890s, and it was a Loyal Order of the Mechanics Lodge Hall. And back then, it was the Farm Women's Club bought it, in the 40s?
late 30s.
Late 30s, early 40s. And my granddad, about 50, I guess he built a kitchen on the back of it. And then we didn't get restrooms in there. We had outhouses up until 96 before we built inside restrooms. But it was used for a school back in the 20s. It was junior high school upstairs. And then we put the museum in, and we just kept adding to it over the years. And the bulk of it came from Mr. Heine that lived in Johnstown. He was a veteran of World War II, and he rode a glider in on D-Day from England. And he left us all kinds of stuff from his military career.
Yeah, you have a lot of neat things up there. I really encourage, anyone to come up and visit it. But the big thing you have is your fair here, and I want to ask about that. And that's when the museum's open during your fair.
It's all free. It's the second Saturday in September, which is the 14th. And this year we're doing it on the 13th too. We're having a 13th evening and then all day on the 14th. And it's our 70th year. And everything's free except the food. We have a big car show. We have live music all day. We have cornhole tournament, kids games of all kinds, craft show. Ladies have a quilt show inside, and a lot of good food. Lions Club usually does like 140 pounds of pulled pork.
Wow.
And ladies do hot dogs and homemade pies and all that kind of good stuff. And all the money is donated to the community building to pay their taxes and pay their insurance for all year.
Oh, okay.
That's what they
so it
use
goes
for.
for a good cause.
Just for
here.
a good cause.
Yeah. Does it help the fire department in any way too?
Well, we let them use it.
Okay.
Just for the craft show part.
And what time and the dates again?
It's the 13th this year. Isn't it?
September 13th
to 14th.
Yeah.
What time do you open?
On the 14th, we'll start about 11. And the car show, they'll start signing in for it. I think they start at 10.
Have you already got everyone you need for the car show if someone would be interested?
A young man does that, and he completely takes care of it.
Okay.
And so my job is the inside of the building, which is setting up and organizing that. And John's job is the outside.
Okay.
He does entertainment.
What kind of entertainment do you have?
We've got live music all day. We get money and pay the bands. We've got different bands and different genres of music. And it's just a good time for everybody.
It is, and especially I think for kids too. The kids really like it.
Yeah,
too.
we've got a climbing wall and a bounce house, and we have this year, we've got a trailer coming, a big one that has video games inside for the kids, and it's all free.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's pretty neat.
It's a good old-timey
Yeah, it's
feel.
kind of like a big family reunion. Everybody
Yeah.
just comes out. People that used to live here, a lot of them come back. I had a gentleman call me the other day, and he said, "Do you all still have a fair?" And I said, "Yes." And he was calling from up in Pennsylvania, and he hadn't been here. He left. He lived in this house as a youth in like 1972 or 3, and they haven't been here since then. And he said, "We're planning on coming this year."
Oh, that's nice.
He said, "You remember me?" And he told me his name. I said, "Yeah, I remember you."
That's nice. What's the furthest you've ever had someone come? Do you know from another country ever? Or?
Well, I used to have a relative that attended the fair a couple different times from Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, 70
She didn't have
years.
connections to Johnstown other than our my side of the family, But
Yeah, it's just a nice little fair to come to. I mean, 70 years, you must be doing something right, huh?
I guess so.
it's September the 13th at 4 o'clock. We have flea market and some food, and we'll have a band.
Oh, okay.
And then on the 14th is our actual day fair, and that's when all the kids' games are here. You don't have to pay to use them. The only thing we ask is come up and buy food. That's how we make our money.
Okay.
And then
It's good food.
And the
too.
auction.
At the
John
end of the
has.
day, I do an auction, sell everything that's left, all the food, all the gifts, everything is all sold in the evening to conclude it.
That's really nice. That's good. And you're an auctioneer too.
I'm an auctioneer. It works
You're
out pretty good.
auctioneer. You're chief of the Johnstown Fire
And
Department.
I found out I never knew that until later years. My granddad Chapman, he passed when I was 8 years old. He used to do the auctions for the fair.
So that was in your blood.
Yeah, it's in my blood, I guess. He wasn't a licensed auctioneer, but for charities, you don't have to be. So he used to do them, they said.
Well, that's great. And then I remember like the oyster dinners you guys used to have, especially during election years.
Yeah, those are big.
Do they have that still? Not anymore.
Just can't get the help.
I think that's the way it is with everywhere,
The community shrunk.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
The older ones have sort of passed on, and the other ones have either moved away or...
They'd even talked about closing the fair down years ago.
Oh.
Early 80s, and Bill and I went down to one of the homemakers meetings, and we became unofficial homemakers.
You're keeping it going, huh?
And they wanted us to take over and try to help it, and we did.
Yep.
That's great. That's great, because that's what it takes, you guys bringing the new blood in and keeping it going. And I want to ask you about your 4-H. Mention that too.
Yeah, I when Alta Queen passed, her daughter Susie gave me her paperwork, and I have an original paper signed by Charlie Hartley, and it's in the community building to look at. We've had the same 4-H club in the community since 1936, and I've had the club now for like 32 years, and we've got 21 kids now, and we're still going.
That's great. Do they still do the beef, like raised beef?
Some of them do, yeah.
Okay.
It's got into everything now. They do computers, model rockets, you name it.
Oh, so it's changed since I've known it.
Diversified, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me think. What was the other thing I was going to ask you about? Oh, the band, the Johnstown band. Tell a little bit about the Johnstown band.
My granddad and his brother were a couple of founding members in 1902. They formed the Johnstown Community Band, and they practiced like 2 times a week at the community building, and they went all over and they played for John Davis's presidential campaign in Clarksburg,
which we're celebrating the 100th year of that.
They played for that, and then they used to go every year to the Allegheny Trans Lunatic Asylum and play on the grounds there and have a big picnic every year. And then they even made an album or two. But they played clear up into the early 70s, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because I know they tried to get me, and I didn't do very well at band. I can't really play the radio.
Yeah, that was a big thing. I'm hoping that Beth, my producer here, will post a picture of that with the band. That was pretty neat. But yeah, it's just a lovely community with lovely people, I think, here, and a beautiful section of southern Harrison County. So I encourage everyone to come out and visit it. And I'm going to close it up with thanking you, Bill and John, for joining us today and talking a little bit about Johnstown. It has such a rich history here.
You're welcome. We appreciate you coming out and doing that with us. It was
Thank you.
Good time.
Thank you very much.
Silence of your wildwood, to the rhythm played by every mountain stream, it becomes a lullaby every time that I come home to West Virginia in my dreams.
Around and about the Clarksburg History Museum spent a lovely summer day visiting the town of Johnstown, West Virginia. John Chapman and Bill Suan were our gracious hosts. We toured their museum and the historic Johnstown United Methodist Church. This church was heavily damaged by a tornado back in 2014, but the community pulled together to save and restore it. And the present church building was dedicated in 1884. Each brick used to build it came from clay taken near the church site. The paintings inside the church on the walls were painted by a local citizen by the name of Samuel Butters, and they were also restored to their original beauty, and you have to make a trip there to see them to appreciate them. I really felt such a serene sense of peace in that church on that bright sunny day. Bill Suan was kind enough to give us the tour of the church and also the cemetery. We were sitting on that hillside behind the church, and we spied a buck deer quietly walking the edge of the woods. The birds were singing over those silent graves, and I just wanted to weep over the grave of a small child who had died in the early 1900s. His parents had a life-size marble statue made in Italy of their little boy. And I could just feel their grief and how they must have felt visiting that solemn grave with the stone monument to their little child. It was an experience that I will never forget. In Harvey Harmer's book, Old Grist Mills of Harrison County, that was published in 1940, here is how he described Johnstown. and it still holds true today. The country surrounding the village is a network of hills and little streams. The hills are rich in soil and covered with native bluegrass. It may have been such hills as these that inspired Mrs. Ellen King to write The West Virginia Hills, our state's most beautiful song. Oh, the West Virginia hills, how majestic and how grand. So enjoy this podcast. Part 2 is an interview that we did with Bill Suan, taking us through the church and some of the artifacts that were in the church. So enjoy the podcast, and please make a visit to Johnstown to take in the beauty that surrounds that countryside. Thank you. Do you know who
That's some of Enoch's Post family.
Oh, is it his family?
Yeah.
Do you know who the first pastor was here at the church?
I would have that.
Would you?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I have. That was a lantern that hung outside. So if they had evening services or activities. Oops. And then this Bible was presented to the church in 1884 when it opened.
When it opened?
Mm-hmm. This is what it looked like after the tornado.
Oh my. How long did it take to do the restoration?
1 year. Look at that hollow. And Ron Lane, a pipeline company, came in and cleared all those trees for us and didn't charge us any money and put us a new gas line in. Our gas line was a rail on the bridge.
Gosh.
And it took that.
It was a miracle that this church was saved.
Mm-hmm. We had to raise over 100,000. No one had upgraded the insurance. I mean, there was like 30 of us going here. We did it.
That's amazing, Bill.
Mm-hmm. Look at the size of those trees.
Gosh.
There's a picture here I wanted to show you. Remember the picture of the bridge I showed you back in the 1900s? There wasn't any trees.
Where the school was?
Yeah, the school's back here. Well, you seen how big those oaks were.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's back with no trees again. The tornado took them all out. And we had to, Kevin Williams built that to hold the wall until we got started.
How long were you without having services here?
We went to the community building and had services every Sunday. I think we only missed one Sunday. No, I take that back. We went to Rockford for a little while. Then we went to the community building. Yeah. But it was...
that could have been a very devastating thing, but you guys
it could have been the end of it.
And
Here's where they covered the painting. Samuel Butters done the painting.
yeah, when we go in there, I'm anxious to see that. Wasn't he a miller? Didn't he have a mill down
I
around
have no
Roman's
idea.
Mills? I think he did.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Now, back when it was built in 1884, you could see the creases here. There was a wall that went all the way down through, and the women sat on one side and the men sat on the other.
Is this one of his paintings?
Yes, it is. And there's no River of Life picture. He just created that. And we lost half of it, way before I remember. And someone came in and painted some rocks on it and stuff. And then Art by Krim, Jimmy Krim's wife, came up here and she put it back to the original just by listening to Out the Queen describe to her what it was.
Now, what year would this have been painted?
1884.
When the church opened, he did this.
But that morning, after she was finished, Alta walked in and she walked around and looked and she said, "That's the way I remember it when I was a little girl."
Isn't that something?
And you can see there's flakes now. We've been trying to get her to come back and work on it again. I mean, she just did a fantastic job. And then, of course, this one up here, they cleaned it. The Crims did.
Did this Samuel Butters, I mean, was he a sign painter maybe? I mean, he's a talented artist.
I know that some of his family came here years ago to see his paintings. I guess he painted in a lot of churches, these wall murals. But this one was so dirty that you couldn't see those trees in the background. I didn't even know they were there. And Jimmy Crim cleaned it. Elijah in the desert. And of course, that's in the Bible, pictured in the Bible. S.I. Butters, 1884. That's his signature.
Do you know of any other churches in the area he would have done that?
I know there's other churches, but I don't know if there's, I couldn't tell you offhand. And and a lot of these little country churches are gone now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was showing Beth Mount Horeb down there. I don't know what it looks like inside, but.
Now, there was a house over here belonged to Virginia Queen, and he did a ceiling mural there. I don't know if it's still there or not.
We'll have to do some research on Samuel Butters and find out about him.
Yeah.
Billy, this is beautiful. I love this back here. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, they'd covered this with tile. And when we restored the church after the tornado, we went back to the wood. And that was supposed to be a choir loft at one time, but it's used as Sunday school rooms now.
How many members do you have going here currently now?
Well, normally we have up around 20 some. This summer it's slowed down, but we have a lot of support from the outside. We have a 9 o'clock service. The young ones don't want to come to 9 o'clock.
Who's your pastor?
Sherry Stilgenbauer, very nice woman. The Methodists, they sort of set things and you just have to live with it. And so 9 a.m. kind of hurts us a little bit for the young people.
Was it always a Methodist church?
Yeah. Well, it was Methodist Protestant. Now, this is the third church on this site.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Didn't know that.
There was a log church in the early 1800s. Later, there was a stick-built church, white. I don't know if anybody has pictures of it, but it was told that it was, just a white clapboard church.
Like down at Roman's Mills, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Like that one.
And then in 1883, they started this one and dedicated it in 1884.
Now, the cemetery here, are those the originals from the log church, the original church?
Oh, yeah, that would have been clear back that time. Somewhere there's a record of the oldest grave, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
I think you can find the grave probably. It lists the old Johnstown cemetery.
Yeah, Where They Lie. A lady wrote a book called Where They Lie.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
it would be in there.
Of that somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what year they took the wall out. I think the men sat on the right over on that side and the women was on this side.
Beautiful.
And it was heated with potbelly stoves until gas came in, and it had wheels with little lanterns on it, and that's their light. That was their light. Then at some point they went to gas light. I think those gas lights are down in the museum, and of course electric in the 1930s when HREA brought electric here.
I love your windows too. They're beautiful.
Yeah, those were done in the 40s, and we had several cracked ones, and they luckily had extra glass. You can see it's not faded, some of the glass. It was, we had them replaced there some years ago.
Oh, thank you for showing this. I've been wanting to look at these paintings for a very long time.
Yeah, there's something, aren't they?
They're beautiful. And he wasn't trained or anything. He just did that naturally, God-given talent.
Yeah, I should know more about him, but I know the family back in the 80s. I wasn't here, but they come through and they were looking for his paintings. They were out of state. And then we had the pews refinished during the tornado, and families paid. It was $500 a pew, and then you put your names on them. Right here's Enoch posts.
That's nice. Yeah. Who keeps up your church? Do you have ladies that come in here and clean?
We have a woman that comes in and cleans it, and then every so often we'll come in and do a detail.
Do you find it difficult to find people to take care of the cemetery? Do you have any trouble finding?
I've never gotten involved in that. Clifford always took care of it, and he passed away recently. So his son's going to take it over, to the best of my knowledge.
That's good.
He's been working with it anyway.
That's good.
Because Clifford hasn't been well for a while. And we put air conditioning in during the restoration.
That's nice.
And a bathroom. We didn't have a bathroom.
Oh, you didn't?
No,
Really?
There was an outhouse out there. A tornado blew it down. Nobody used it anyway. He just went home. But there's a cornerstone in this bell tower. When they dedicated the church, they put different items, coins and stuff, into the cornerstone. Oh. And it was opened up in 1984. I wasn't here. I was in college then. But I got a description of what all was in there.
That's nice. That's neat.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. That's really nice. I've always wanted to be coming in here, and I just never did.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome to come anytime. I don't know if Butter's done that or not. It's not signed. And this one's not signed because they lost the bottom half of it. But he definitely did that one inside there.
Oh, okay.
And of course, the one behind the pew's been signed. Well,
You got your pictures?
Yep.
Okay. We done?
and remind me at the house, let me look and see if I have an extra copy of the history of the church.
Oh, that would be
West
nice.
Virginia mountain melodies. There's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free. Your West Virginia mountain melodies. I feel secure in the arms of your green valley. There's a peace you've given me that's yours alone. Take me in like a child to the gentle of your wild West Virginia. I'm coming home. Your West Virginia mountain melodies. There's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free. Your West Virginia mountain melody. West Virginia mountain melody. There's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free. Your West Virginia mountain melody.